great. All these people cheering on Team USA. Yeah. I mean, where are you to stand up to stop boys who would crush these girls in 9 out of 10 events? I don't know, maybe not the balance beam. I'm not sure. But in most of these events, to speak up for their safety and their fairness.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Leftist Losers Show, where we point out all of the losers of the left. And today I got a clip from the Megyn Kelly show where Megyn Kelly and Steele were just discussing the cultural relevance of the Olympics and kind of the current situation that's blowing up and going viral of a biological male boxing a biological female and the male knocking the female out of the event in 46 seconds. Not because he knocked her out literally, but because he punched her so hard in the face, she stopped in the middle of the ring and started crying and went and told her coach that she was not going to continue anymore. She realized that he hit so hard that it just wasn't going to happen, right? Which is kind of crazy. I mean, for years now, the left has been pushing for transgender individuals to be allowed to participate in whatever sex sport that they want to. And what I mean by sex sport is, like, if they want to fight females as a male, they can do so. If they want to fight males as a female, they can do so, even though they never do. And it's just, the world is upside down. The leftist worldview is just nuts. These people are out of their minds, and they're making their bed and laying in it. Because again, this boxer that got knocked out or quit after 46 seconds of being in the ring with a male, she's still supporting the male. She's still wishing this person well, hoping he goes on to win the whole thing. And this is the issue, right? So Megyn Kelly and Steele, they're calling out saying we need to defend these women. I don't disagree. Men should defend women. However, it's really hard to want to stand up for people who, at the same time, wish it would keep happening, right? Like, this woman got punched in the face by a man, which is terrible. And instead of saying, hey, this is something we should condemn and we should stop doing, she turns right around and goes, we should keep doing this. Men should keep beating women up. We should be okay with this. I don't know how we're supposed to, stick up for these women when this is what they want. The feminist movement is just crazy at this point. They don't make any sense. They're actively hurting women. And I don't think we should support that at all. So we need to be outraged. We need to be pushing for this stuff to stop. But supporting these people when this is what they're hoping for, it's a paradox, right? It's kind of a paradox. So anyways, let's go ahead and jump right in this clip and let's hear what Megyn Kelly and Steele have to say about this whole cultural situation.
Palm Beach, and Donald Trump was speaking there. It was a Turning Point USA Faith Summit. And that's one of the things he said during his speech, was that this will not be allowed. I will make sure that girls don't have to compete against boys and women don't have to compete against men. And the roar in the crowd was deafening for many topics, but especially that one. I guess that gives me hope and a reminder to everybody, the cliche that elections have consequences, and this is a really big one. I will tell you this also, being at that summit, being in airports and hotels constantly now around the country, and I know everybody on this panel is, that's the one thing that people come up to me and say, oh my gosh, thank you, which I'm just talking, I'm just stating the obvious, I thought, but continuing to push on it. And they say, please don't stop, because I'm concerned for my niece. It isn't sometimes just our daughter. I told you this, Megyn, before. My girls, their competitive days are long over. This isn't about me or my kids. It's about you and your kids and everybody else. So I can just say, from being...
This is something that absolutely frustrates me about people on the right, is I appreciate the fact that people on our side of the political aisle tend to be responsible adults who have lives and work, and don't want to, put that stuff in jeopardy because they have kids and they have something, they're actually building something, right, and doing something positive for society. But it's frustrating because these same people won't stand up and speak their mind. There's no backbone, right? Like, conservatives are too scared to talk and speak up. And so you have these people coming up to her saying, thank you for being my voice. And the reason why we get crushed on the right constantly in the culture is because the left is got nothing to lose. They're willing to say crazy, ridiculous things and try to convince people to join their team, and somehow manage to do so because they're willing to speak up. And you have a lot of people in society who are willing to just follow the crowd. And so when most of the crowd sounds like a leftist and is screaming unhinged, crazy stuff, they think that they're going to fit in when they believe those things. And that's why you have people who just blindly follow the transgender stuff and are willing to put up with it, even though it's crazy and ridiculous. And you have women getting beat up in the ring. It's basically domestic abuse put on public display. They're okay with it because they think that's what's going to let them fit in, because conservatives are too busy working and taking care of their families, which again is a good thing, but it's only a good thing because that's a positive, it's positive. The problem is at the same time, you need to be speaking up. You need to be speaking your mind. You need to stop hiding behind the fact that you're worried about getting kicked out of society. Look, if society is going to kick you out for being common sense and level-headed and reasonable, it's not a society that you should want to live in, right? We need to build a culture and a society that's positive and beneficial to everyone, and that actually is moving us in a direction towards prosperity and not this weird degenerate garbage where we're having men beat women up because they want to play pretend and tuck their junk into their frickin', their butt crack or whatever, whatever. We're going to talk about that. But point is, we got to stop supporting this stuff, and being silent at this point is supporting it. And so I'm ranting for too long about this, but it's just frustrating. I know it's good that she has people come up and saying they're happy she's speaking for them, but it's frustrating to know that those people are too scared to speak up, because if they were to speak up, more people that don't care might be willing to try to agree with that because they want to fit in versus agreeing with the crazy leftists.
Out that this is such an important topic for millions and millions of people. And we're seeing the dangers, of course, what we talked about with the volleyball player of North Carolina. We're seeing a lot of questions right now across the pond in Paris and boxing, et cetera. This isn't going to go away. And I just know that if we get quiet now, we too will, and I don't mean this, I guess I could mean this literally and figuratively, but blood on our hands from the potential of what has happened, of course, in the past and what could continue to happen. I feel like I have no choice but to continue to speak up. And especially, Michelle, you and I have done so much work on this through the years with women and pushing women in sports and more highlights. And let's focus on the WNBA. Let's focus on women in fantasy football and those numbers and how much women love sports. And the silence in our industry is still deafening to me and maddening.
It is. And Megyn, you pointed out the boxing in the Olympics. Years ago, when this was a very, very small sort of fringe issue, I remember people saying, this is not a big deal. This is so rare. Come on. This is not like it's widespread. It is now in the Olympic Games, in one of the most devastatingly violent sports, boxing. So to suggest that this is now a fringe thing, no, it's not. We see constantly cyclists. I talked to a skateboarder yesterday who I interviewed on my podcast. They are losing their positions on the podiums. They are losing dollars. They are losing sponsorships. And you know what else they're losing? They're losing their spirit and their faith in humanity. That, wait a minute, I thought we had girls divisions, women's divisions for a reason. We do. I remember when Title IX passed, I was a little girl. My dad said to me, you are going to have opportunities my sisters never had, your mom never had. And I believe that people like Sage and I were able to carve out careers in sports. Title IX was at the root of that. Now we...
Something else, too, that she's not really bringing up yet, but the reason you have this happening in the Olympics is there's a lot of countries that don't care about this transgender stuff. And they also don't care or don't feel like they'll be shamed if they, as a man, sign up to fight in the women's division. Like the guy that hit that lady in the Olympics and got her to quit within 46 seconds, he failed the gender testing they did before the matching, right? He didn't even pass that, but they still let him box anyways. So anyone from any other country that doesn't care about their image but wants that money, I think they get like $40-something thousand as a reward for winning. If you're coming from a poor country where $40,000 is like hundreds of thousands or millions in your currency, yeah, screw it. Why not just sign up as a chick and win easily and then go back and be rich? Like, they're not going to care. You won them a medal back in their country. A lot of these places don't care. Russia, I bet you Russians wouldn't give two shits, excuse my language, about this. They'd probably be willing to be like, yeah, I'll go sign up as a chick. I'll win the whole thing. I'll make a bunch of money. I'll go home rich with a medal. Why would they care? Like, if the West is going to engage in these ridiculous pretend fantasy land ideas and we can take advantage of it, why would we be surprised when these other countries that don't care about, the image of them doing that? Why are we surprised they wouldn't do that, or they would do that? Excuse me. We shouldn't be at all. This stuff doesn't work unless everyone agrees it's reasonable and everyone plays by those rules, but they don't, right? Because again, this stuff is just we're in this phase of society where everything is so easy and coddled and resources are so abundant, even though there's a lot of poor people in the country, quote unquote poor, not really poor compared to the rest of the world, but for Americans, they're poor. we can enjoy this decadence and this degeneracy and pretend like this is like rights we're fighting for, when the reality is that none of this would exist if we were fighting for survival. Not even a little bit. It's silly. It's not going to last. The thing is, it's funny because the left thinks they're winning, but the more they quote unquote win and they get to do these things, the more they're hated and they're looked at as just clowns. So you know what? It's kind of a win-win for conservatives. Conservatives need to speak up and make their voice known, but at the same time, the more the left wins, all the unhinged garbage that they push comes to fruition, and then regular people realize, oh wait, this is terrible. Why are we doing this? Like at this point, if Kamala Harris wins and Trump loses the election, she's terrible, right? Like, look how terrible the Biden administration's been, and they can blame that now on the fact that has dementia or Parkinson's or whatever he ends up having. But Kamala Harris doesn't have that excuse. I'm sure they'll try to find one. I'm sure they'll spin the narrative. But if she gets in and the country just continues down this road of just tanking in every way, and they get us involved in World War III more so than we are now, and everything just goes down the crapper, people are going to go again and wish, well, maybe we should have voted for Trump. And Trump probably won't. I wouldn't imagine he probably won't run next time because how old he is. And they're not going to have Trump to go after anymore. They're going to have to find some way to attack the next person. And they will, of course. But is it going to work as well? I don't know. I mean, Trump, they were able to spin Trump and get him for January 6th and everything else and get regular people to think that those situations were real and or, an issue. But they're going to have to start that process all over again with the next person that comes in that takes the MAGA mantle, right? So we'll see what happens. But this whole situation with the Olympics is just nuts. And it's the leftist degeneracy, and they'll keep pushing for it, and they'll keep waking regular people up because regular people don't like seeing a man beat a woman up. It's just domestic abuse on public display.
We could play now, we could participate, and that made us more, I guess, legitimate as commentators. But so this is no longer fringe. And I just keep waking up every day and going, what the hell are we doing?
Well, you think about the Olympics underway right now. And as I mentioned, Jennifer, you were a world-class athlete in gymnastics. And we just won. Team USA won gold. And you think that's great. All these people cheering on Team USA. Yeah. I mean, where are you to stand up to stop boys who would crush these girls in 9 out of 10 events? I don't know, maybe not the balance beam. I'm not sure. But in most of these events, to speak up for their safety and their fairness.
You know what, Megyn, I used to think women's gymnastics was safe from this, but I've found a little rabbit hole on Instagram where there's males doing women's gymnastics, and they're competing in the NAIA, although they're the only governing body that actually made the correct rule, which is women's sports needs to be for biological females only. So I actually think because of the way the sport has changed gymnastics, and it's so much about power and strength, and the extreme difficulty, and it's much less about grace and flexibility than it used to be. I actually think men would crush in women's gymnastics too, unfortunately. And they have their own gymnastics. Do your own gymnastics and leave us alone.
They have their own boxing. They have their own everything.
They have their own everything.
It's so astonishingly retrograde, Megyn, that, these women are being told, these girls and women are being told to sit down and shut up and, take the punch like a man or a woman and right. Don't complain, because to be nice, you need to let this guy beat the crap out of you. Well,
and there it is. I mean, that's a great way to sum up the leftist movement in general. The left, basically when society removed religion as a core tenet in our society, they filled that gap with a pseudo-religion, and that's to follow the leftist liberal ideology. They treat their politics as a religion. And the reason the right loses elections constantly is not because the left is this massive group of people who are the majority, but because the left looks at voting as like their church. Like the right doesn't vote. That's why we didn't see a red wave in 2022. And that's why they tell women to sit down and shut up, because they oppress good people, right? The left looks to oppress the majority by the minority, and that's why you see a lot of these weird fringe movements in their ideology and their groups, like this transgender stuff. I guarantee you that if you made a transgender division in sports, you let biological women stay in women's divisions and men stay in men's divisions, and then anyone that wants to change genders, have them have their own thing, I guarantee you most of this would stop. There probably wouldn't even be enough people to actually have a division, not because they can't find the people that are looking to do that stuff, but because a lot of these guys that are getting all these headlines and that we're talking about in these situations are only doing it because they get to win easily. And again, I know people hate saying that because, oh, men are better than women. Well, you know what? It's not that men are better than women. It's just that men have different physical attributes than women. There's not even in dispute anymore, right? Like, we're just built differently. That's just reality. And the left is always running from reality. They're always looking to skew things. They're always trying to frame things in a different way to get what they want, because there is no truth but power on the left. That's what they live by. That's the core tenet of the leftist movement, is to do whatever you have to do, alter information in any way you have to, so that way you can gain power. That's all they care about, is power. And it's disgusting. And that's why society is breaking down, because the left is gaining power by destroying and burning things and causing chaos. And they're going to keep doing it. And all we can do is stand up and make our voices heard, which again is why I said at the beginning of this video on my first rant that people on the right need to speak up. I'm not saying you got to go out there and be preaching to people at work or being annoying, but I'm saying when the conversation comes up, if somebody at work brings up something that has to do with political views, and the leftist guy in your work or gal starts spouting off about all her leftist woke garbage, you got to push back on it. That doesn't mean argue. That doesn't mean start screaming and be unhinged. It means just express how you feel about it. And I guarantee you'll influence more people than you think. They might not in the moment tell you they agree with you, but if you come off as a reasonable, level-headed person and you just talk about it and you're not attacking the other person, and they're over there spouting their weird, even if they're nice about it, if they're just talking about cutting wieners off and cutting off, girls' boobs and stuff, like, they're gonna turn people off of their movement, guaranteed, right? People aren't interested in that stuff in reality. Americans just really want to be nice, and the left knows that, and they manipulate the regular person's feelings into thinking, well, if you want to be the nice, good person, you have to side with us because the other side's evil. They're evil for not wanting to let little boys and girls cut off their body parts. That's the leftist movement right now. It's disgusting and stupid and degenerate, and it's not going to last forever because it can't. It literally can't. We won't exist as a society if this is the road that we stick to for however long we have to. It won't work out, sadly. For them, I should say. Sadly for them. It's good for us. The other reality is the left isn't having kids. So, a few decades from now, there won't be much of the leftist movement anymore because none of them are having kids and they're not passing their ideas down. And I know they think that, well, the schools have your kids, so they're doing it, but that's starting to go away too. Homeschooling is exploding because the right is figuring that out, right? So anyways, that's all I got for you guys with this video. I'm going to end it here. I hope you guys enjoyed this content. This stuff's getting crazy out there, but if you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe down below. Comment what you think about it or tear me apart in the comments either way. I appreciate it, and I hope you guys have a fantastic day.